somebody I won't say who they are, you thought the justice to camera. Which you were. You made it with authentic and truth.
The reason I came along was because Craig, going to the film. And I just literally came along as the cameraman. And then Marion said, perhaps I might say a few words about this idea of living theory. I'm not quite sure about the legend group, but...
In my book.
Yeah.
I've never heard you be modest before, Jack.
Perhaps he prefers the ledge.
I suppose my research, I was once interested in Caroline, and we were just talking earlier, okay? And suddenly, I found Caroline was doing work on knowledge in health, okay, but actually in an African context, in Nigeria. Now, the embodied knowledge that Caroline is carrying needs, I think, the techniques that both Sean and Marion are showing to communicate the meanings that are actually flowing through your body. Yeah? Now, in this idea of the living theory process, each one of you will generate an explanation of your influence in the context of your own practice. So you'd be asking questions, how do I improve my practice in whatever professional context you're working in? So, Kevin, we were just talking about the work with the artists, and Kevin was going to give a paper to artists to communicate better the meanings in the paper. And I was saying, well, actually, you'll find some limitations in this print-based medium for communicating the meanings themselves. So you could put in a really creative response which shows some of those limitations. So as well as fulfilling your brief, you could actually bring your own self and the embodied knowledge you have into a creative response. And this goes for everybody here. Even if you're doing positivist research, you could actually draw people's attention to some of the limitations of that kind of representation. Because what you were working on yesterday was a very, very powerful sense of emotional authenticity, which everybody here will have, but it will rarely come into a research paper. And yet in real life, it's absolutely vital. Now, what we've got, and Maria have got the projector, and you may show people this afternoon, but it's linked in with the web, and you can get the actionresearch.net, if you just remember that, all one word, actionresearch.net. You can find Marion's doctorate, which is actually about bringing passion for compassion, using these techniques and also video, into the university, okay, as a standard of judgment. So it's got epistemological significance. It's to do with the theory of knowledge. And Marion was one of the first to bring that sense of embodied expression of a passion for compassion into the university. The examiners really did comprehend what Marion was actually meaning by that expression of compassion through the body. It wasn't just text. Could I just say, was that clear in terms of what I was saying? Because I think...
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand.
Okay.
Take your example of your research question at the moment.
Well, I don't know, I don't understand what you mean about expressing your embodied knowledge to somebody. I don't...
Okay. Actually, you're doing it at this moment. So even when you say, I don't understand what it means.
But did you...
Okay, go on.
I'm sorry.
No, please do.
Do you mean expressing it to your participants? To the people you're working with? Or do you mean expressing it as in once you're writing it up? Or...
It's both. Okay? Because you can't help. But I can't help but express now the embodied knowledge of over 40 years engagement in this kind of research. This is what I'm doing. But also, I research the process. So Sean is actually videotaping me at this moment. I will be reflecting on this in my response to your question. And even though I'm very aware, it's like this man called Donald Sher talks about reflection in action and reflection on action. And even as I'm speaking, I'm doing it in action with you. I'm very aware that this camera will help me to communicate the energy I'm feeling. And I actually do love what I do. So as I'm responding to you, I'm just thinking, well, this is a very exciting question. I don't understand, as you said. Yes,
so you're saying by the time that reaches paper form, you've essentially lost, it's like a filter system, and you've lost some of the essence which would have been captured in the real life, of capturing life.
It is exactly that.
Yeah.
So the Western universities were influenced 2,500 years ago by the very first university created by Aristotle and Plato. The logical language we use here in this Western culture is very different to the knowledge that, for example, Caroline expresses coming from an African culture, which is much more grounded in relational forms of being. In the West, our knowledge base has lost what Marion has brought into through her doctorate, back again into the body and the expressions through the representations that Sean and Marion showed us. So I think that's really vital of seeing what is missing from a lot of the actual text, the academic texts that we've actually been brought up with in the Western cultures.
I quite like that concept of filtered out that you mentioned there. Filtering out.
Yeah, filtering
out.
Like a pyramid shape, a reverse pyramid shape. So, you start off with loads of information, and by the time you get to your research paper, you might have a really filtered down
and it's lost meaning. It's not just in the sense filtered out and kept an essential meaning. You've lost. Even as we're speaking, you're carrying from it an interest. The sense of the body you've got a lifetime of knowledge that you're expressing literally through your bodies, your talk, your emotion. If you take love is filtered out in academic papers. I gave a lecture here 3 years ago to all the research students, and I asked what their values were doing their research. Not one of them in the university actually mentioned love, that the idea that we love what we do. And I asked why was this? Because clearly people are excited and they do love what they're doing. And then there was a silence, and one of the other researchers just said, well, love isn't academic. Now, that brought home the point that there's something wrong with the academic if love or justice or compassion has been taken out of it. So on the Action Research website, you'll see a lot of the doctorates. I think there are over 30 that I've supervised over the last 15 years to successful completion. And they've all got this sense of the embodied values and expression through these kinds of representations. Now, I don't want to take up too much time because...
I think there's something very important as well. The notion of embodied knowledge. We've got a few of you who are interested in various fields of psychology, which counts with me. And I know through the traditions that I'm used to, you are treated as a contaminant in what you're doing. So in education, I would observe the classroom, and I'm supposed to take myself out of that, so I didn't exist. Actually, understanding that you are part of what it is that you're doing. So as you I'll give an example. I had a teacher who was passionate about how the youngsters actually succeeding and enjoying their success. So whenever she did a reading test, she could get 2 years higher on the reading scores than other people were getting. It wasn't because she was cheating. Because what she wasn't understanding was what she was communicating in that space with the dynamic that was being created, because she was really expressing her embodied knowledge, herself as an educator, living fully those values of wanting youngsters to experience that success. In traditional work, that would be considered that she was cheating, contaminating results. Whereas we need to understand that. How the hell did those kids manage to read so much better than when they were with her than with somebody else? So rather than taking yourself out, it's actually understanding in psychology. Surely this should be fundamental as to how as humans are we understanding that we're not just researching on, but we are as humans part of that. So it's the living theory of a research methodology that employs various research methods which include multimedia narrative as a way of starting to understand and communicate that relational dynamic. And some of the quantitative work is left to one side. Not only just left to one side, but filtered out is contaminated. It's not to say you can't use different quantitative methods as well, but I'm just aware that you don't have that background in those different forms. When I did psychology before, I searched for years to find an understanding of some understanding of qualitative. So I don't know whether that helps to locate what you've been offered in the theatre research as well. I don't know whether that helps, but
I just want to understand if one is applying this embodiment in getting your information, the process of getting information from the participants, or the process of communicating information to the audience, the wider audience?
Yeah, it's both of those, but it's also something in addition which is transformative. And Sean is a really good illustration or somebody, for example, I've just been sitting here spouting on like the traditional academic, yeah? And when you see Shaw, you'll see him, his whole body, right? You must have seen this movement of Shaw. You know, whatever he thinks, God, sit still. Yeah, but it's actually like this. And he'll move behind you. So the whole space is part of how Shaw's way of being is expressed.
Yeah.
Now that is a particular way of knowing what is known as inclusionality. Okay, that you yourself see that you're within the space relating to each person with different boundaries. Whereas if I sit here, it's almost, I'm trying to express myself emotionally, but it's head talk, isn't it? You could actually look at this. Whereas your whole way of being, and when you were doing the theatre yesterday, you were in the space, present to each other, and it was embracing, when we were in the theatre. Am I making sense there? Because it's very important, it's about the way you see yourself and others. And the African notion of what is known as Ubuntu, Nelson Mandela, if you Google Nelson Mandela and Ubuntu, he's got 20 minutes just talking about this African way of being, which is rather like Shaw, actually expresses himself with a space which he's totally in. Now, in the Western cultures, we've been taught to sit here. Our heads, we're talking heads, yet Shaw's movement and his way of being is, it feels exciting for me when I see Shaw, because he's occupying the space, he's finding the boundaries to attract you into, and he's moving with emotion because he doesn't want to violate the space. It's a very different way of being, and I think you'll develop this with your research, to the African context. Are you okay with this?
Yeah, I was just thinking, so, I understand that within research I'm not objective, and I understand that I'm part of research, and I'm part of the process, and I influence that process. And I do understand what you're saying, but for me, and the way that I understand emotion, I don't think it's the same way that what you were talking about just then, I don't get that. I don't feel that. I don't know. I just feel.
Yeah, but with.
Do you think? I'm just trying to say. Do you think that there's only a certain amount of people who can express that or use that type of research? Because I don't understand that. And I know that yesterday you probably thought I was very uptight and all the rest of it, but it's just because I don't express emotion like that. I would, like you two on stage, obviously I thought it was very good acting, but I don't cry like that in real life, and that's why I can't do it on stage, because I don't feel that. And
I think to respond to that, there wouldn't have been a requirement for you to cry. What Susie and Arabella expressed was their own response.
And I
so your response would have been different. But there is, I don't think that it's something that it's like, I started off my research career doing quantitative work, and I found that really challenging because it was very rationalistic, and I knew what I ended up with was nothing like what I'd experienced. But I wanted to learn how to do it, and I gave it my best shot. And I think that, if you have a look and see what other people have done, it may be that you never want to work in that way. But I think that would be just because you're not, hey, doesn't mean to say that you don't have all that embodied knowledge, that when you're working with people you will be in a relationship with them and you're influencing and everything, but you'll do it your way, My way is a Jack ways, everyone's got a different way, and it may be that, you look at it and that's how you respect your own contribution to that. But it's not like, when you're doing a survey and you're using this particular methodology that you have to, there is only one right way. Approach living theory because it's about how you respond in your practice to a living theory methodology. You make it your own.
Quite often Jack would do a runner in that context yesterday, but that doesn't mean to say that he doesn't have the capacity to love and explore that too and express that in some way. and his way will be very different. So, that's cool.
As all ours will be. It isn't. It's not a right or wrong.
If you were to look at the video clip, of how you were expressing it carried a passion, an interest in what you were saying in your body. As you were expressing it, was actually carrying a really powerful, lots of people are nodding. So I think you do it. But it's your way. And Marian's saying everybody here will have their own unique, interesting, we call it living theory methodology, that you would actually generate. So it's not using anybody else's, so you would develop your own expression. But you're actually doing it. I could feel your passion.
Absolutely, I could see it.
You could see it.
Yeah, what Jack and Marie don't do there, when they're in the use of multimedia, generally is theatre, or that kind, or what they're looking at is how that particular dynamic of the relationship when they're doing whatever their practice is. And looking at understanding what happens when they're in that relationship and how they respond and how the other person responds. And sometimes, it's only afterwards that you say, I was a bit impositional there. And actually, my response meant that person then didn't respond. And I didn't give them enough time. Or you see, actually, that person's never ever opened up to me in that way. It was a very, very positive thing that happened. What did happen differently? Was there anything that I did differently in that moment that I could learn to do again, perhaps be maybe listening more or whatever. So it's in that detail as well that it's very useful, isn't it?
Yes. I think it's about the pre-context of emotion as well. Because before Dylan came to see me and told that story, I was in angry emotion. If yesterday I was doing meditation and she came to tell me, I'm like, no way, and just start crying without screaming. But yesterday my emotion is angry and strong angry. So when she came to tell me, just like angry and crying come together, but cry in the screaming way. Because I have many ways to cry, but it's up to the pre-emotion. What's that being?
I think if I can relate this from my own study to some extent, it's like saying, because in my studies I believe that each being is an embodied being and the product of dynamics of his or her context. And as a result, what you have embodied cannot be what I have embodied in you. And we all get to express ourselves in our own embodied nature. So there shouldn't be a state of me coming to tell you how to express yourself, because the way you express yourself should be a product of your embodiment, and the way I do it should be a product of my own embodiment. So I think capturing each person's embodied expression or embodied narration should be a way of helping the person to get to understand him or herself better and probably attaining a height of achievement in whatever the person is doing. So it's not a question of capturing someone's action or determining someone's action or recommending an action for a person, because that person is embodied in his or her own context and will definitely be a different person or a different nature, whatever you are bringing from your own embodiment. So I think it's very vital in getting to understand better, for me anyway, this living theory, because using it as a method of studying this would kind of bring out more what I'm trying to say.
You see, with Caroline, being interested in, if you like, well-being or well-becoming,
Yeah.
I think over the next couple of years we will learn a lot from Caroline's work in Nigeria about Caroline's way of being in that indigenous context, looking at health issues.
Yeah, if I can just give a little example, like this idea of family planning thing. it's been going on in Africa for quite a long time. Like educating families to control childbirth and limit childbirth to two children per fertile woman. But the African understanding of childbearing is that it's not controlled. It's a kind of gift from God. It comes from God, and that God that gives a child provides for the child. And they don't. In fact, some cultures don't count children. They tell you don't count children. And then somebody coming from a different epistemological belief to come and say, no, have two children, it cannot capture the embodied belief of the people. Absolutely. Of childbearing.
So you just have those...
There's a conflict, yes. So unless you get to understand this embodied belief of the people and probably find a way of getting them to unravel their difficulty in having too many children and catering for the children, and still find a solution through their embodied belief, it will be difficult to get them to change, to accept, to have less children. In as much as it's a problem to them, but coming with a different understanding to teach them to stop having many children will not work. They will not just understand it.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if you're hearing Caroline, but we call it action research, where Caroline is saying, look, we've got a real concern here. It's very serious, both cultural and practical issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's imagine what we're going to do about it, and then act, and then evaluate. And you've got there a systematic process of research, which we call action research, which lends itself to trying to improve practice in different cultural contexts.
To move down to a living theory approach to action research is the one. And I think it connects for each of you. Within traditional research, you say then, how and what. What is it I want to do? What is it I want to change? How am I going to do it? And how am I going to communicate that? This brings that why are you doing it? Connected with your values. Why are you each really excited about your research? And that's not just in here, it's an exploration of self as well, in that sense. So that again is part of that notion. So you can actually just opens up a different way of looking at your research, and I think the approach is.
And it's part of the theatre experience too, in terms of that skills and what we were asking you to do yesterday, and what we're asking you to do today too. Yeah.
So that contextualises it.
Absolutely. It's neatly packaged now.
Yes.
Is that okay now? Can I go back behind the camera?
Brilliant. Yes, thank you ever so much.